Firstly, I'm saying that we're cycles, like when we talk about bull bear cycles in Bitcoin, it's 4 years. We've had two really prominent cycles. So everyone's looking back and going, well, we're going to end maybe end of this year. And we're going to have another pullback of 85% over a year. And then we'll have another, 4 year cycle. And I'm saying, I don't think that's going to happen. And I think that, if given that's the case, well, that's those bear cycles of bull bear cycles of 4 years have gone, then we're just going to have we'll go up and down, whether you call them bull bear cycles, but they're not 4 years in cycles. This is like a price discovery as the thing ramps up. I have these charts up every day, and seriously, we've got 12 and a half years of these charts. It's carving out an adoption S-curve. 3% of the world has Bitcoin, and it's growing at a rate of 100% per annum. So probably 6% in a year, 6% of the world population having exposure, and then 12%, and so forth. So it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds ridiculous that we won't have US dollars in 10 years. But I remember doing this thing in 2016, tracking the rate of growth. We had 6 or 7 years at that point. And I said, looks like in 9 years, half of the world would be using Bitcoin. And that's actually continued to be on track. So things change very quickly when we're talking about exponential change. So I think there's a fair shot that the new unit account may be Bitcoin. Sounds ridiculous when only 3% of the world's using it. But remember, it's going to be 6% and 12% in 2 years. And then it's going to look a lot more obvious. And so, yeah, if the unit account changes, and yeah, that's a lot of things change.
Why do you think it hasn't broken that 70 mark? Because obviously the all-time highs are exciting, but I mean, they're not too far from, the 60s we had earlier this year before the big correction. So why can't we break 70?
I think, well, the market's been a little bit overheated. We had the ETF that was announced, so there was a lot of speculative buying that came in, and a lot of the people that have bought are more speculative in nature. And so if you were to look at where we sit in terms of what I call supply shock, which is the ratio of those guys that are really strong holders to the rest, I would say the ratio of coins held by these really strong holders versus more speculative hands, we're not at the ratios that we saw in the first and second quarter before May. We're actually climbing up there, but not at the same levels where we last touched the $64,000 range. So structurally, you could say we're not as bullish on chain, at least, but we've also had a lot of changes with the ETFs being approved. So those ETFs are futures based. They're not actually buying Bitcoin. They're actually buying futures contracts to get exposure to the price in a way that's like a new kind of thing that we have to account for. And like, for all things being equal, the price should be much higher, like for the given amount of on-chain hodling, because now we've got these hodlers that are hodling actually derivative contracts rather than Bitcoin themselves. So I think you take the two in concert. The hodling on-chain is not as strong as, say, April, but then we've got this new kind of kid in town, which is hodling the derivative contracts. But overall, it's been there's a lot of speculative FOMO, and the fundamentals are catching up, but we're just going sideways a lot just to really wait for that to normalize. Like when I look at it, I've been saying to a lot of my subscribers to my newsletter, it's just like it's sideways, it's consolidating, it's a little bit overheated, we've got a few weeks to wait, and that's actually what's happened. It's just a wait and see game. Like the fundamentals is really strong over the next 3 to 6 months. Locally, it's been overheated, and we just have to wait. it takes some time, you know. There's been, and the other thing is everyone is very, very bullish right now. And whenever everyone's bullish, it's very difficult for the price to run upwards because you get a whole lot of speculative long positions in the markets, and that makes it very, very profitable to take the other side and short it and prevent the price rise and effectively, you know, take out the long positions. So the majority is very seldom right. So we need to get into a position where the market's a little bit more confused about the price going up, and that actually opens the window for the price to go up. Markets are funny like that because it's game theoretic between, you know, buyers and sellers, and it's kind of a sports game, right? If everyone is going one way, there's going to be some really big players out there that are going to push it the other. Yeah, I'm just really interested to see who the next buyers are. So you've got, like, we've had the first bunch of corporates that have bought in, and we haven't had a really big, like, you know, Fortune 20 like company like come in. So I'm looking for that. I'm also looking for the first large sort of sovereign wealth fund buy in. We've always seen El Salvador get exposure with their so a nation state has bought in, but like some of the big guys, you know, with trillion dollars of like wealth to invest, looking for that kind of stuff, and also interested to see what happens with the hedge fund world, whether or not they sell off to, you know, publish their results, you know, their earnings. I don't know. So I'm really just going into the first quarter, like who's buying, who's selling. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, like this, as things go on, we go from the early buyers that are small to bigger buyers, and then you had the hedge funds, you had the, you know, the very notable, you know, the Bridgewaters of this world, BlackRock, they're starting to validate it. And so we're going bigger and bigger. I'm waiting for the big announcements from, you know, sovereign wealth funds and banks holding it as an asset backing. So that kind of thing of bringing more and more legitimacy into it. Just, you know, every sort of quarter we see something new. We just had the ETFs, so that was something we were watching for the third or fourth quarter of this year, and it came through. Also spot ETFs as well, whether or not they'll be approved. So yeah, it's nice. It's just watching this tiny asset class get mature and become a full-blown macro asset with all of its sophistications.
Do you have a favorite celebrity or athlete who you would die if they had Bitcoin?
Oh gosh.
Who should get Bitcoin?
I'd say Steve Jobs, because like that's literally impossible. Like, you know, I think maybe someone who, I don't know. I think they'll like. No, I can't think of anyone. Like the people I think of, they already hold Bitcoin.